Hey fellas, Dash here to quickly show off how you can use Flash to very quickly create iterated thumbnails for YouTube. I'm not talking about making the entire thumbnail since the image itself is entirely up to you. I'm just talking about the process of creating numbered iterations. So what you'll need to have ready is having the assets for your art already done, as well as your custom numbers 0 through 9. So to start off, we just need to open Flash, create a new document, set up your dimensions. Now, I am using an old Macromedia Flash, so your interface might be slightly different, but I mean, you can figure it out. So I'm gonna make mine 1280 by 720, and the frame rate and all this other stuff completely doesn't matter. Next thing to do is take your bitmaps and actually import them to your library. So go up here to File, Import to Library, and find your stuff. So getting right to the point of what this is actually about, just get your image already prepared, and however you want to do that, then get your numbered digits prepared individually. So just draw them out however you are going to do your custom numbering. If you're like me and you're using pixel art, one thing that I want to say about using pixel art in Flash is just, well, how to get it into vector graphics. So you bring in your PNG or whatever bitmap thing that you have here, and the first thing you want to do is get it to a solid position. Don't have it be on like 370.4, pixels down. You don't want decimals because that creates blurry lines and bad pixel art. Pixels aren't meant to be displayed on half pixels. It makes it blurry and bad looking. So get it onto whole values, and then if you go to Modify, Bitmap, Trace Bitmap, have color threshold and minimum area on single pixels as just 1 and 1, curve fit pixels, corner threshold normal. That should convert it over to vector graphics. Now, yours might look a little different because I'm using an old version of Flash, but hey, you can figure it out. It should be very, very similar. So once that is paint, you can come in here and manually punch in your new values. Do not drag it out. What that ends up doing is it creates those blurry lines just the same way, because you end up getting something like 141.7 pixels on the height, and it looks shitty. So instead, manually punch in a whole factor that you are going to multiply by. So I want these to be 20 times as big, so if it's 120 wide now, I'll just manually punch in 2400, and then that will stretch it out to nice, sharp edges. So anyway, that is how you get pixels into vector graphics. So once you finish up converting that, and you have each number that you have down, so whether you did it that way or you just drew them yourself, or however it is that you got these numbers onto the screen, that part's up to you. Now is when it actually gets to a tutorial. So what you want to do is highlight each individual digit and turn it into its own symbol, its movie clip. So you can either right-click it and say convert to symbol, or you can highlight it and hit F8 and just name it the number that it is. You'll want to keep the registration in the middle and the type as a movie clip for now. And yours might look a little different. Yours might look like this instead, just ignore all that other stuff. For now, just convert each one of these numbers into a symbol that is called what the digit is. Or, something that you'll remember. A lot of this is arbitrary. The point is that you're creating a symbol for each number. Okay, so once you have all these as movie clips, just get rid of them all for now. So our goal now is to create a looping graphic for each digit, which will ultimately just make it automatically spell out a number for every single frame that we create in the movie. We end up creating a movie where each frame is one of your thumbnails, and the numbers are created automatically by these looping graphics. So how we do that is we need to create the first graphic that we're going to use. So create a new symbol and call it ones, or whatever you want to call it, to tell you that this is your ones digit. This time make it a graphic, not a movie clip. And what we do in here is bring in our first digit and center it. Remember, if you're using pixel art, to always use whole integers. Now for our ones digit, since the ones digit changes every single iteration, every single frame we need to create a new keyframe and put the next digit on here. So we just need to create a graphic of 10 frames that counts 1 through 9 and lands on 0 on frame 10. Flash has this really easy way to do it where you create a new keyframe, and because we made them all movie clips in our library over here, you can just go to the properties of it and hit swap, click on the next one, and it'll just swap it with the next one, keeping the same anchor point so you don't have to recenter it. Otherwise you'd have to, okay, I want to do frame 7, so create frame 7, delete 6, drag in 7, come in here and manually punch in. That's a waste of time. It's, just create your new keyframe, go to swap, and it swaps it out, keeping the center the same. Very, very easy. So, again, we want to land on frame 10 as 0. Now, if you have any digits that aren't in quite the right position, like my 7 here is a little high up, you will need to do those adjustments now. Do not wait. Right now, turn on onion skin and get every digit into the exact position that you want it in relative to the others. Okay, so when they are all nice and lined up, what we have here is a looping graphic that counts 1 through 9, hits 0 on 10, which means it loops back to 1 for 11, hits 0 on 20, loops back to 1 for 21, loops back to 3 for 43, loops back to 7 on 57. It always lands on the right digit for the ones number. Now, it is even easier to iterate upon this graphic and create the next digit, because we've already done all the work of manually placing all these numbers and getting them lined up. All we have to do now to create our tens digit is to right click on the ones graphic that you made over here, duplicate it, and call it tens. It's still a graphic. Now, here's one little thing about Flash. I'm not sure if Adobe does this differently, but okay, so I made a duplicate. I called it tens. I don't just start making changes here because we are still editing ones. It doesn't bring you into editing the thing you just created. Make sure that you go in here to actually edit tens to save yourself the confusion later. Now what you want to do with tens is, if you can imagine the ones digit next to it, incrementing once every single frame, you want this number to increment every 10 frames. So our 1 is going to be on frame 1, while our 2 is 10 frames later on frame 11. 3 is going to be on 21, just add 10 every single time. The reason that it's not on a solid 10, like it's not going 10, 20, 30, is because we started on 1 and need to add 10 each time. So what you end up with is 0 landing on 91, and it's very important that this digit also loops back around at the correct time in the hundreds, so make sure to drag it out and make it 100 frames total. This 0 needs to have 10 frames of space of its own. And there we go. And now once again, we're gonna go all the way up to 1,000 because it's that easy. Take your ones again, duplicate it, call this one hundreds. Once again, remember to go into editing hundreds. Don't start editing tens after you just created that duplication. And do the same thing, except this time, instead of 11, 21, 31, we want our digits to land on 101, 201, 301. Each time, just take all the remaining ones and drag them over until the next keyframe is on the next spot that you want. And then what you end up with, similar to the tens digit ending on 91, this one is going to end on 901. But just like the tens digit needing 10 total frames for the 0, this one needs 100 total frames for the 0. So create frames out to 1,000 on it. Are you guys ready for the magic to happen? Because now, come back out to scene 1, and it is time to have your minds blown. Make sure to make this its own layer so that if you ever want to make adjustments to your image, you can do that behind the numbers, and bring out your ones digit onto your new layer. For the last time, if you're using pixel art, please use whole integers so that your lines don't show up blurry. Then, as you can see, the magic will now happen. If you create frames, it will automatically go through them, and then if you create an 11th frame, as you can see, this graphic loops back to 1 for frame 11. Now, if yours isn't looping, check out the object properties and make sure that that it is indeed a graphic and not a movie clip, and that you have it set to loop. So, we want the tens digit to first show up on frame 10. So on your numbers layer, create a keyframe on frame 10 and bring your tens digit in. Get it lined up just how you want it and bring that out to frame 100. Oh, already you are seeing how amazing this is, aren't you? So now on frame 100, when it goes from 99 to 0, we create another keyframe on our numbers layer and we bring in our 100s digit. So, be honest, at first you thought this was kind of seeming like a pain in the ass, right? But then all of a sudden, you're telling me that I can create 1,000 iterations in a matter of, realistically, minutes? Yeah, man, check this out. Drag your frames out to frame 1,000, actually 999, because actually frame 1,000 they'll all set back to 0, and you know, you're not going to use that one, so remove it. And look at this. We have a movie where each different frame is a different number. And now finally, for the very last part of it, where it all comes together, is we go to, well, first save your work. And then go to File, Export, Export Movie. And export not as a Flash movie SWF, not as an animated GIF or any of that shit. You want either, you know, depending on your preference, a JPEG, GIF, or PNG sequence. I want a PNG sequence for me, and so remember to make yourself a folder for this, right? And go into your new folder that you've created, make it a PNG sequence, and call it, you know, whatever you want. I'll call it Afterbirth Thumb, and hit save. You'll get some options. Make sure that everything looks right here, you got your right resolution and all that. You want to make sure you include full document size. Now, depending on the actual image that you are using, you might have your own preferences for these options, so do with it as you will, and hit OK, and wait for it to do all the work for you. And once it's completed, just like that, come back and check out this folder that you've created, and you have yourself a separate PNG image for every single number 1 through 999. In that little time, you don't have to do any work for a very long time. How about that? And each one is just a few kilobytes. Just a few kilobytes. In fact, I'm just curious here. This entire thing is only 27 megabytes for me, for 999 thumbnails. Pretty sweet! Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, it was more about the iterative process there, not the actual image themselves, because of course art is just its own thing. I just wanted to show you guys the trick that I use in order to very quickly get the iterations done. I really like Flash as a program, and so I just wanted to show off one of the cool things it can do. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you around.